Good morning, trading world. It is June 30th, 2022, and this is my pre-market outlook and technical analysis for day trading the SPY. There is a lot to discuss that stems back to yesterday and where we closed. I did hint at some of this yesterday in yesterday's pre-market video. First, we have catalyst type events kicking off all through the overnight session and this morning. This morning we have jobless claims, GDP, Chicago PMI, EIA Natural gas report, and team all that up with today is a quarterly expiration. All that equals big move. Now going back to yesterday's close, we closed at a place technically that was right on the edge of a channel, and quantitatively it was right on the edge of risk. I spoke a while back about the options market growing inability to price in risk, and when we get outside of that risk area, the professionals have to dynamically hedge with futures. If outside of the risk line to the top side, they must buy into buying to hedge. Or in our case this morning, on the low side of that risk line, they have to sell into selling in order to hedge. Once we get outside of the risk line and firms begin to dynamically hedge, it's a free-for-all. And we could have wild, frantic movement and go into moments of free fall. A lot of notional value has to be closed and or rolled today. We could see a day where indexes are down as much as 3 to 5% or better. Now from the technical side, I usually won't go in big when we are sitting on a pivot and momentum indicators are at a kind of 50-50 level. But because of all the other data, I felt that it was worth the risk adding two small puts, the 5 July 22 380s at about 2 p.m. yesterday. Now that we are outside of the market maker's expected move, small levels don't matter to me as much, but major channels do. The lower part of the channel we're in is 364, and the major channel low below that is going to be 353. Other events to think about is that the first is on Friday, and this brings in new fund flows. And we have a CPI data drop before market. Looking at these two events, if we don't hit a channel low today, I'm starting to wonder how big of a gap down we could start with on Friday. Let's get to the key levels of the day. All right. Here we are with the key levels of the day. Starting on the resistance side, we have our jack resistance at 376 to the 377 area. Then we have our queen resistance at the 378 to 380 area, which we're probably going to have a lot of trouble getting to and then even breaking through. And king resistance is 381 to the 384 area. On the support side, we have our jack support at 374 to the 373 area. Then we have our queen support at 372 to the 370 area, and then king support 369 to the 364 area. Believe it or not, the main thesis for today was bullish, closing above the 380.34 with a projected target high of between 381 and 384. The alternate thesis is bearish, closing below the 380.34 with a projected target low of between 371 and 364. What I do want to take a moment to say is that usually on days like this, when we lined up or closed where we closed yesterday on the edge of risk, when we do get that alternate thesis where everybody is leaning one way and we push through or do the opposite, we get an extremely more explosive alternate thesis. And that may be the case today. The current channel we're in is 379 down to 364. The next channel lower is going to be 364 down to 353. That let's bring on the scenarios of the day. All right, our first scenario and most probable scenario, which we hadn't had this clear in a long time, is our trend day down structure. We open gap down, start with a pop back toward the previous close. We find resistance on or before that previous close, then begin the downtrend for the morning. We find midday chop around either our possible queen or king support area. Note that the gap down is big enough to make the first part of the day feel like an uptrend day if we try to fill the gap completely. But until we close above the previous close, it is still a downtrend day structure. I do want to add that there can be varying degrees today of how bad this trend day could get. Because one of the things that I will be looking for, if for some reason we only make it back toward the jack resistance area, that could bode bad for the rest of the day, and we could see a pretty bad free fall where the morning's trend takes us very, very low. And it could be somewhere close to that king area, 364 or better, before we even find a little bit to level out and get that head fake for the rest of the day, and then maybe a little bit of reprieve. So just a heads up on the varying degrees of this trend day as it could happen. It could get pretty bad today. So that's our trend day down structure. All right, scenario number 2 is our rounded reversal day type structure. We could get a continued push higher toward the jack or queen resistance area and find our midday chop around either the queen or king resistance area before spending the same energy we use going up to go back down the second half of the day. And that second half of the day could be a lot stronger this time around. We could really begin to kind of come apart in free fall this second half of the day. So that is our second scenario. Let me bring up the last and least probable scenario. Before I bring up the last scenario, I do want to give a vice versa warning because we could see a push lower. It is still somewhat possible to see us take this fall and get a push lower first and try to find midday chop at either the queen or king support area before rallying at the end of the day. However, the most probable is the first, where we get the push up. Now let's get to the last scenario. Alright, our last scenario is our expanded range day structure. We could look to set a decision area low boundary around the jack queen support area before chopping back and forth and pushing boundaries lower. So that's it. Those are the scenarios of the day, and an extreme caution goes out today in knowing and understanding your risks, because we could be pushed toward those edges today where you see extreme risk fly. So be very cautious in your positioning today. This looks to be one of those days where the tape is going to be very angry. So please be very cautious in placing positions today. With that being said, I hope this helped. And as always, wishing you a positive trading day. Have a great one.